Hi, everyone. Today we're going to go through part 2 of this paper, Topics Worth Reviewing. So this is going to be the entire back of the paper. What I want you to do is just copy down things that you think might be useful to you or to someone else. If you were trying to teach these topics yourself. And so that means that, you don't have to have every single thing filled in, but we should have maybe the majority of the things filled in with something that I say during this explanation. So starting with accidentals, if I were you, I would just write down what the different accidentals are. That would be a sharp, a flat, and a natural sign. Practice drawing that natural because it's sometimes kind of weird for people to do. Next, letter notes. Let's just do a quick review. If we are living in the treble clef, okay, think about what letter that is. Say what it is. G for every good boy does fine. Next. That letter would be A. F-A-C-E. Face tells us every space. Let's do one below the staff. If the bottom line is E for every good boy does fine, then you would say that this note is D. Next, let's move on to bass clef. This is the one that you might consider writing down more because maybe you're not as familiar with it. We have great big dreams for America, or good burritos don't fall apart, right? For the spaces, we have all cows eat grass. Let's practice. Good burritos don't. Don't forget to count from the bottom line up. How about this one? All cows eat grass. Let's do one more. This one's above the staff. Think about what the top line would be. Good burritos don't fall apart. This would be one above A, which would be B. Moving on to rhythm numbers, okay? This is just, I would like for you to write down probably something that looks like this. Just a simple rhythm, okay? As a reminder to yourself, when we count eighth notes, we use the one and. When we count rests, we do parentheses around the number. And when we count elongations, notes that are held out, we do a big number to start and a small number as a placeholder. I think that rhythm pretty much covers it, so I would just write that down. Next, a minor or a blues scale. If you're in concert choir, I want you to write down blues scale solfege, which would be do, me, fa, fi, sol, te, do. You could also sub out the fi for a say or whatever makes you happy, but that's pretty much what it is. If you're not in concert choir, let's just talk about, or even if you are in concert choir, actually, let's talk about minor scales for a second, okay? Minor scales are la to la. So la, ti, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la. What I would write down on your paper is natural minor equals la to la. Simply, right? Then we have two other forms of minor that we've studied. Harmonic minor is la to la, but we throw in that C at the top. The final form of minor that we've studied is melodic minor, okay? And for right now, let's just say it's la to la with a fi and a C on the way up the scale. So I would write those things down under minor blues scales. Next up, dynamics. I would just write them in order probably. From softest to loudest, ascending. And maybe you could even draw some sort of crescendo underneath. Next up, conducting patterns. I would chart them out on your paper. So let's say we're going to do a conducting pattern in 4/4 time, meaning 4 beats per measure. When you go to do that conducting pattern, it kind of feels like this. That shape, down, left, right, up, down, left, right, up, down, left, right, up. So you could either draw that shape or write down, left, right, up, maybe like this. Okay. If you're working in 3/4 time, 3 beats per measure, we have down, right, up, or something like that. Next up, melody versus harmony versus texture. I'm sure you know what melody and harmony are, right? But texture, like a thick texture, refers to lots of parts in a song. So I go next door and I listen to the wind ensemble and they've got like 12 different instruments or something, all playing different parts. That's a thick texture. As opposed to me at home, just playing on my ukulele, like just me and the uke, that's more of a thin texture, fewer parts, fewer harmonies, things like that. So thick is lots of harmonies and parts. Next, where octaves fall in the voice, I would draw a little tiny staff depending on what voice part you sing. If you sing soprano or alto, I would just write some notes to yourself. Like, for example, this note right here. That's going to feel pretty high, but not super high, right? So top of the staff is, feeling pretty high. For most sopranos and altos, the bottom of our range lives about here. That note right there. So I would just chart something like that out, like upper range, lower range. For our guys, most of you sing down pretty much to the bottom of the staff. Okay, so I can't demonstrate that note, but it's low for you. And then most of you sing up to about like here comfortably, which would be that note, which for me sounds low, but for you it seems kind of high, in normal voice without falsetto. So I would just chart that out just as a basic idea of where the octaves fall in your voice. Next, tonic, dominant, subdominant. What are they? Okay, tonic would be our do, mi, sol. Dominant would be our sol, ti, re, and sometimes fa. The subdominant, which we worked briefly on, would be fa, la, do. These are the most common chords that you see in music. So it's really important to, just be familiar with tonic, dominant, and subdominant, which occur in every single song. I would write those down. 16th note groups. All right, so we've got, do to data here. Then we've got a do data and a do today. I'm going to write all these in a second. And then we've got a do ta. And then maybe one more. Ta do. All right, so let's write all these in. Let's figure out what we're doing here. This one is do, ta, day, ta. The full shebang. This one starts with an eighth note. The eighth note kind of eats up the do and the ta. We call it do. Then these 16th notes land on the day ta. Next example, we have do ta. These are our first two 16th notes. This last eighth note eats up both 16ths. That would be a day. Right here, we have a do. It eats up the first three because it has a dot. And then we land with a ta at the bottom. Do, ta, do. This one's the opposite. It starts with a do. This takes up the ta all the way to the end of the pattern. Do ta, do ta. I would write down all of those 16th note patterns, please. Next, dotted quarter or tie groups, okay? It's just important for you to be super good at these because these come up in every single song and they're not really that tricky. So if we were counting this with do's and do days, we would be thinking like do with a baby do pulse. This falls on the day, okay? Why does it fall on the day? This takes up 1.5 beats, so it kind of carries over into the second beat there. And then this is obviously a do, day, do, okay? So it feels like do, day, do, day, do. That's why we always say there's 2 taps on it. It's like a little pulse. If we were going to use numbers instead, you would kind of do the same idea. So I would write this down too. 1, baby 2, this is a big and, 3 and 4, like so. Next up, musical intervals, okay? We've got, our major second, which is do to re. We've got our major third, do to mi, when the saints go marching in. We've got perfect fourth, here comes the bride. Perfect fifth, twinkle, twinkle. Major sixth, NBC. Major seventh, take on me. And then, you know, we have like unison, which is just like the same note, but I'll skip that. We'll do perfect eighth, or in other words, an octave, right? Which is do to high do. Somewhere over the rainbow is a great example. Okay, we did a whole lesson on this if you're confused. That's why I'm going fast. All right, next, time signatures. Okay. So I'll write some examples up here. Copy down some of these examples. A lot of you say like 4/4. It's just called 4/4. This is not math class, okay? So what they mean, the top number indicates the number of beats in each measure, right? Whereas the bottom number indicates the value of each note, or what type of note gets a beat. So I'm going to write what type of note gets one beat. So for your whole life, you've basically been working in these time signatures here. 4/4, 4 beats per measure. Quarter note is 1. This is what you've always memorized. 2/4, 2 beats per measure. Quarter note is 1. But now, as you're more advanced, we start getting different types of time signatures. 6/8, how many beats are in a measure? You should be saying 6, okay? What type of note gets a beat? If you said eighth note, good guess. The eighth note now equals 1. We've practiced this before. I've told you, like, in this time signature, it feels like everything's doubled, right? How about 3/2? 3/2, how many beats per measure? You should be saying 3. What type of note gets a beat? All of a sudden in 3/2, a half note gets 1. This is really hard for some of us to grasp, but that's a real thing that happens sometimes in music. Okay, next, under tonality discrimination, okay? Major tonality, as you probably know, is, anything that's, do to do with a resting tone of do, okay? Minor tonality would be anything that's la to la with a resting tone of la. We're not going to practice that on this video, but I'm hoping that at this point you can discriminate between the two when you hear songs in major or minor. Okay, meters, we kind of already discussed like time signatures. Some of the ones that are going to seem unusual to you, some meters or time signatures that feel kind of wonky, are 5/8 or 7/8. We did practice these a couple months ago. 5/8 feels like do-be, do-bobby, or do-bobby, do-be, okay? Feels very uneven. 7/8, okay, has 7 beats, which can't really be even. So it's like do-be, do-be, do-bobby. I remember you guys liked these because you liked saying do-be. Whoops, not do-day, do-be, and do-bobby. You thought that was kind of funny. But yeah, I would just write down, like, under unusual meters, 5/8 and 7/8 are good examples of things that we don't see that often, but they do occur in music. Tonal finder. My goodness, you should be good at this by now. Write the whole thing down. Do, mi, sol, la, sol, fa, mi, re, ti, sol, do. Of course, that only works for major tonality, right? Concert choir, I want you to write down the minor one. La, do, mi, fa, mi, re, do, ti, si, mi, la. This only works for harmonic minor, but usually that's what we're using, so it works out just fine. Oh, I have intervals on there twice. Awesome. You can skip the second one, or you can just cross it off. The last thing on there would be triplet types, okay? So we have, what we would call, sorry about my marker. We have what we would call eighth note triplets, right? And these are triplets that all fit inside of one beat, okay? So if we're tapping quarter notes, feels like do-day, do-da-dee, do-day, do. They all fit inside of one beat. So draw yourself some eighth note triplets and write fit into one beat. Now, there's another type of triplet too. I do that really weird. Okay, whatever, it's fine. Anyway, quarter note triplets, they all fit into like 2 beats evenly. So it's hard to get used to, but it's like do, day, triple, let, do, do, day, triplet, do. I don't use doodaddies for those because it's not really a doodaddy. It doesn't sneak into one beat. So I say triplet. But these are called quarter note triplets, eighth note triplets. You're writing what they fit into. These fit into one beat. These, which I drew like upside down, fit into two. Anyway, I hope you learned something or at least refreshed something in your brain, and I will see you soon.